All right, so for this video in the module, what we're going to do is we're going to build an object. So we're going to use all the little things we've learned so far, and we're going to build the most very basic object. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a little table. So what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is go up to the shelves here, and I'm going to create an object with one of the primitives, or we could go up here to create. Let's try this. Let's use the pull down menu. So I'm going to use a cube. All right, I'm going to hit a cube here. So there we go. There's the cube. And then I can use my Alt or Option key and my right mouse button and zoom, or I can use F. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to tumble a little bit. So that's Alt or Option with the left mouse button. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this object. So I just went over here to the toolbars and I hit on scale. So I'm going to hit scale and I'm going to scale the object. You can see here. So now you're going to have to zoom out. So you're going to have to go to Alt, right, or Option, right mouse button, and zoom out a little bit. Okay, so you see I'm scaling it up. And I'm going to try and get it in proportion to one of these kind of bigger grid squares here. So I can keep scaling it up. Okay. And if I really want to, I can go over here to the channel box and I can just type in a 10. Okay. So that's what you can also do. All right. So now this has got to be a tabletop. So this is like a giant, huge block. So this isn't going to really work. I need this much smaller. So here's what I can do is with scaling, you can also, when I pick on the yellow handle, I'm doing global scaling. So I'm scaling the whole object. But what I can do is I can also use one of these handles and I can do something called non-proportional scaling. So what that is I'm scaling in one direction. So basically, I can just scale along one axis. So I'm going to scale this down. Okay. See, I just did that. So again, I like typing in very clean numbers here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a 1 right there. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now, yeah, that's a pretty good looking table. I mean, tabletop will serve the purpose. And I'm going to want to create the legs. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go into create polygon primitives. Oops, and I'm going to go into cylinder. Okay, so I'm going to create a cylinder. All right, so now I see the cylinder in there, but again, that's also an unusual size. So I'm going to scale it up non-proportionally. Like that'll be a little stumpy for a leg and it's a little fat. So I'm going to do a couple things to it, right? Okay, so I'm going to scale it up in a single direction, okay? Just pulling on this one. Okay. All right. So it seems a little kind of, maybe a little fat for this whole table here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this in a little bit. Okay. So actually here what I'm going to do too, I'm going to use some of the controls I showed everybody. I'm going to hit the space bar. Okay. All right. So now I can see it from top view. So here's my quad views. So I'm going to go up to the mouse over the top view and I'm going to hit the space bar again. Okay, so now I'm seeing it in kind of proportion here. So now I can kind of get some sense of how it relates to the top form here. Okay, and if you notice, every time I scale it up, you'll see these numbers kind of scaling here. Okay, so I'm not going to get too worried about having a specific number here. We're just going to do this by eye for this time here. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to move it. So I'm going to move it to one of these corners here. So I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks here to use different tools and show you how to, how you would use these different things together. Okay, so I don't know if anybody remembers, but before when I showed the different view controls here, what I can do is I can do a wireframe over mesh, or I want to be able to see the grid as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch that off, and I'm going to switch it into grid mode. Okay, so now I can see the grid here, okay? So now I'm going to select this object. Okay, there we go. And as you see, when I selected it, you can see by the tool, this means it's in the scale tool, right? So always remember when you're going to transform, you have to remember to change your transform tool, because sometimes people start pulling on this and then they'll be scaling their model, or they're rotating it or whatever. So remember, this is the scale, this is rotate, this is move. So I'm going to hit on the move tool, okay? And then you'll see it'll turn to these little arrows, right? Okay, so now I can move in different directions. So I see each one of these arrows controls it in a certain direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get it over here. I want to get it right onto this little grid spot here, okay? So I'm going to move it, move it, move it. Now I want to show you something else. We have these nice things called grids, but there's also something called a grid snap. So if you see these little icons here, that will make sure your object, this is the only one I'm going to deal with right now, but this is, see it says snap to grids. So I'm going to switch that on. And now you'll see when I move it, it's moved very differently. Now it has to snap to a line, okay? So that's very nice if you want to do something a little more precise. So I'm going to go to the other windows now, because I have to see what's going on here, because now we're way down here at the bottom of the table here. So I need to move the leg up. So I just went to the front view, I hit on the space bar, and that gave me just this view. And I could do the same thing from the side view if I wanted. Okay, so now I have snap on, so I'm going to pull this up. Okay, and just pull it up enough so that it's in the inside the table. I'll show you later on. I'll show you how to do this stuff with high precision, because when you start milling models out, or you start fabricating things, I mean, you can't just be moving things wherever. Okay, so now I'm going to go to space bar. I'm going to check things around. So, and also too, here's another thing as well. Each window can have its own kind of view control. Like this window, I could have wireframe on as well. This one I could have just shaded. This one could be only wireframe. Okay, so I'm going to keep this one in wireframe because I want to see what's happening with the other pieces. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick that object, right? Okay, and then we can go up here and we can go to duplicate. Okay, so now we've made an object we like. I don't want to have to go back and remake another leg and scale it up, etc., because I've made one element that I like. So I'm just going to hit duplicate. Okay, so now it doesn't look like anything's happened because it's looks like where is that leg? What happens is it duplicates right in the position of where the other object is. So when I do this, you'll see now I'm going to have the object moving. Okay. So now because I have snap on as well, what it did, you'll see it like in this window, because it shared space there and it just can move in one axis, it'll move. Now, if I went up here to grid and I turned it off, then I can move it anywhere, okay? I could do whatever I wanted. So I'm gonna hit Control Z, undo, okay? So I want to keep that grid snap on. So I'm going to now move this over here, okay? Now, this tool also works with multiple objects. So now I'm going to select both of these objects here, and I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate, or you could do Control D if you like. But at first, it's probably easier for students just to work with, the pull down menu. So I'm going to go Duplicate. Okay. So now grid snap is on, so they're moving along. You can see in the top view that there's both those objects are there. We can see in this view over here. I'm going to hit F for framing everything, because now I have more objects in my scene. Okay, look at that. Now we have an upside down table. Okay. I'm going to turn off the wireframe on shaded. Okay. And now what we have to do, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so here's a little trick. I can do F, like I could do F in this window here. Or I can do Shift F, and that will frame up all the windows, okay? So in this window too, I want to have uniform shading like the other one, so you notice we can't see anything. If I click on things, then you can see stuff, okay? All right, so now, but what now we have to do is we have to rotate the objects. So we don't want the upside down table, we want a table right side up, okay? So now I'll go over here and I will select all the objects, right? Now if you notice I have the move control on this, that's these arrows. What I want to do is go to rotate, okay? And you can see also, look over here in the outliner, everything is selected. So I'm gonna hit rotate, okay? So now rotate, let me zoom to this window here, okay? So now these are the axes of rotation, okay? Just like the arrows in the move tool and the scale tool, okay? So I'm gonna wanna move it in a kind of lateral direction, so. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one thing here. In the lesson, it did not call for grouping. So I'm gonna have to show you one more thing. What I'm gonna have to do is, because if you notice, they're all moving independently. I can, there's a couple things. I don't wanna get too complex here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a group. So we're gonna jump ahead to a slight, like the next lesson, but I'm gonna create a group out of these things. So that's what's gonna happen here is we're gonna take all these objects and we're gonna turn them into one, they'll function as one kind of single object. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the select tool. I'm gonna pick on it. I'm gonna go to edit. And if you notice, we've already been going to edit menu now. So I showed you how to duplicate something. Now we're gonna create a group. Okay. So now that group functions as an object. Okay, so this will work better. All right. So now, like say I wanted to, let me just do a move. You'll see how this works. Okay, so you see now it's functioning as one single thing. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna select the group. I'm gonna hit rotate. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so now you notice I did that kind of freehand, and that's not going to be perfect. So what I'm going to do, because you see the numbers over here, so I'm going to type in 180. So I like clean numbers. Okay. So now that's been completely rotated 180 degrees, and now it's also dropped below the floor. So now we also want to do this. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to use the mouse wheel here a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to, with the move tool, I'm going to select it. Okay. And we're going to move this whole thing up. There we go. Let me turn snap off so I can kind of get it right onto the floor line. We're just eyeballing for this project, so normally I'd have precision snaps, all these things. All right, so now like my views have kind of got a little wonky too, so now I'm going to do Shift F. Okay, there we go. So now we have the whole table all put together here, and we have this thing called a group over here. So also too in the outline, I'm going to show you what's happening with the group. So now we have all the objects, so you can still get to the single objects if you wanted. Let me just use the pick command here. This is our original top right here. Okay, but now they're it's kind of like a folder within Maya. It's like a folder of objects. Okay, that's kind of what a group is. Okay. So there you go. So that's our basic project here. I'm just going to have you go File, Save Scene As. Save Scene will just go to a default spot for Maya. What you need to do is Save Scene As. Okay. And then that's going to take you to the default spot for Maya projects, etc. So you can save it there, or probably best thing is to make a little folder somewhere on your desktop, or someplace you can get access to, like class 1 or something, like class 2 actually, whatever you want to call it. So just put it there. We're going to show you some more complex stuff later. So what you do is find a spot you want to save this to, and then you give it a name, and then just save it out. Okay. So then once you put a name in there, and then it's going to go save as. Okay. So there you go. That is your first model in Maya, and on for many more. And yeah, so there you go. Okay,